Welcome back to the Casual GM podcast. I am your host, Drew, and once again, I am joined by my co-host, Mike. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Drew, yourself?
I'm great. If you're wondering why I paused so long at the beginning of the episode, it's because we are now converting our YouTube broadcasts into podcasts. And I've found that by going back and editing the audio on our old podcast, that basically what happens is I sound like this. 3, 2, hello everybody, and then it's just immediate, and it's kind of surprising and a little scary. So I'm trying to give myself a breath or two at the beginning in order to make that audio a little bit better. So if you can't watch us on Tuesdays at 7 here on YouTube, you can catch us anytime that works for you by going to Spotify and the Casual GM podcast. And if you don't want to search for that, please follow our Twitter feed at Casual GM. Is it Casual GM Podcast or just Casual GM, Mike?
I believe it's at Casual GM Podcast.
Okay. So, and you can go there, and I will post the link to every episode on our Twitter feed. So,
right on.
Yeah. So, it's the best time of year.
The team building time.
Yes. And in that same vein, I just want to mention something, throw a tiny bit of shade, and something that I think was kind of fun today. Today was the USFL draft, and I was on Twitter following the draft, and the Michigan Panthers took an offensive lineman. I think his name is Jared Horst, number 1 overall. He's from Michigan State. So congratulations, MSU. You finally had a number 1 overall pick. It's in a developmental league in its second go round. But at least you had it. And when they put up a picture of Jared Horst on Twitter for the Michigan Panthers, they posted a picture of Mike Morris from Michigan.
Jeez.
And I'm like,
that's terrible.
So they were like, Jared Horst, and they put up a picture, and it says 90, and I was like, it's got his hair. He's got long dreadlocks or whatever. And so I was like, that's not.
The Maize and Blue probably should have given it away, right?
Right. I mean, so I'm looking at it, and I was like, I don't remember a guy named Jared Horst that plays for the Wolverines. I watched every game since I was 7 years old. So, I mean, now I don't remember every player, but if he was good enough to be drafted in the USFL draft, I probably would have heard of him. So I look him up, and I'm like, MSU, that picture's the wrong picture. That's embarrassing. So,
who's it more embarrassing for? The player that got drafted that they just didn't find the right thing, or the fact that they the broadcast team that put up the wrong person's picture?
It's neither. The person that is the most embarrassed is Mike Morris from Michigan. That he could somehow be confused with Jared Horst. So we've got a overnight ice storm warning here, Mark. It's probably going to be the that blizzard in Green Bay coming over the lake. So can't wait for that. Love ice.
Should be fun. At least I'm working from home tomorrow.
You work from home all the time. It's like 80% of your life. So
that's true.
So hey, Funky, how are you, man?
What's up?
We love. I saw Funky in. I believe it was the Roar of the Lions UK's chat. Today's Tuesday. Was it yesterday? Or was it late last week where they were discussing offensive free agency options? It was a good discussion. I like those guys. So,
yeah,
they seem to be pretty passionate about the Lions and football in general. And so there's a rumor going around that there is going to be a game played in Germany, and the Kansas City Chiefs are. So the Kansas City Chiefs are guaranteed to be in that Germany game, but
as the home team,
and the opponent has not been announced. But we know from the schedule release that Detroit is playing Kansas City, so they are one of 17 options to play the Chiefs in Germany.
Well, that's not even true because the Kansas City is the established home team.
Sure.
So there's only 8, possibly 9, depending on actual road opponents for them, or I should say home opponents. So you have to be playing Kansas City as the traveling road team to be, to have a shot there. And supposedly there was some unnamed Detroit person that's in the know that said it's going to be us. Until I hear it, it's all just whispers until it's announced.
So I have seen a lot of very pro Germany response to the idea that the Lions would play the Chiefs in Germany. Yeah. I'm not one of those people. I am a fan of what the schedule the Lions had this last year. You're playing on Sunday at 1:00 every week. They had I think they traveled the fewest amount of miles of all but 1 or 2 teams in the NFL. That is good.
Yeah.
I guess there's upside to it, right? Like there was upside for Hard Knocks.
Yeah, it's a little bit of visibility. It's more on the PR side, I think, than anything. But having a German bonus kid, I would be super tempted if we could get tickets to do that.
Vomit. Okay.
We haven't met his family yet, other than through video chats and stuff like that. So it'd be cool to go out there, spend some time with them, even if it's just for a extra long weekend, go to the game. His favorite team is the Chiefs, so that would be pretty cool. It'd be expensive for a long weekend though, so I don't know how that's going to go over budget wise, but we'll see.
Well, you still haven't finished your basement yet. How are we gonna go to Germany? So
this is true. We're gonna be going to Germany the following summer, partially as a 23rd anniversary. Partially, we're gonna take the boys and drop them off at Max's house, and they're gonna travel through Europe to Hungary and Austria and stuff like that with his family. And my wife and I are gonna head off to the rest of Europe and then come back 2 weeks later to get the boys and head back. So that's going to be our it was supposed to be our 20th anniversary trip, and then COVID ruined everything.
Mm-hmm.
So we postponed it. It'll also be his graduation too, so it'll be fun.
Sure.
But
for those of you,
let's talk football though.
Yeah. So for those of you listening, this is the kind of life you can have as a co-host to a YouTube channel. So excellent. So, all right, Michael, where are we going this week?
All right, so I think our main topic is going to be pick 6, not the interceptions that have been thrown in the past, but the NFL draft, because that's much more fun. Before we do that, do you want to talk about any news and notes around the NFL? I think the last time we were talking, the running backs coach that we hired to replace Deuce Staley was potentially going to be the OC. I don't remember if at that time Tampa Bay had already made their decision, but he's not going to be the guy, so we're going to keep him. Lamar Jackson is not particularly happy with Baltimore, sounds like. Some vague shenanigans in his Instagram makes it sound like he's pretty unhappy being in Baltimore. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Does he get the franchise tag? Daniel Jones wants to reset the quarterback market at $45 million a year.
That's not resetting the market, but
it is for someone of his quality. If someone of his quality gets a $45 million, that's basically resetting it. Because
what's the difference between Daniel Jones and Kyler Murray?
What's that?
What's the difference between Daniel Jones and Kyler Murray?
Good question.
Okay, so Kyler got 46 and a little change.
Yeah, but at the time he was considered.
Who cares?
He had a big dive last year.
That doesn't matter. What matters is the situation that these teams find themselves in when their rookie deal quarterbacks come up for a new deal. So, this is nothing but the fear of having turnover at the position. like what Baltimore debatedly, or not, that's not even a word. What's debatable about Baltimore's decision is that one way that you could look at this situation, like the situation in Baltimore and the Giants situation in New York, is that they got arguably the best 5 seasons out of both of these quarterbacks that they could potentially have in the NFL. Maybe not, but they got those seasons. Each team got those seasons on an absolute deal, right?
Yeah.
And so the question is, if this is who both of these quarterbacks are moving forward, into future seasons, are you willing to pay 3 times or more, 4 times or more, what these guys made on their rookie deals? Is what Lamar Jackson can do for Baltimore worth more than 4 times what they've already paid him? Is what Daniel Jones did for the Giants worth 4 times as much to them? And I like Lamar Jackson. I think that Lamar Jackson, I don't seem to have the kind of hang-ups about Lamar Jackson that some other people might, but the answer is no. I mean, you have to be Patrick Mahomes basically in the NFL right now to win as a quarterback on a second deal, right? At numbers like this. And there is a price point in every market where one side will walk away. And so far, the players have all been right to push that envelope. Yeah. And a lot of them,
why not, right?
Right. It's the only thing that can go wrong is that they earn more money. And if
right.
And if not, then it's likely that they're going to get traded and someone's going to extend them to something close to what they wanted. So there's been no drawback to being that. But if I'm the Giants, I don't know that I can re-sign Daniel Jones for $45 million. I mean, and to be honest, I don't know that there's that many quarterbacks in the NFL that I would.
Yeah, and that's my point is when I say resetting the market, when you're the 17th best quarterback in the league and you're going to make $45 million, what does that do for the actual top 10, right? I mean, not that I'd put Kirk Cousins in the top 10, but he's certainly better than Daniel Jones.
Mm-hmm.
So where does it put him on his next contract?
So that's
right.
So I was on Twitter, and someone made the comment boy, these quarterback salaries are going up. Will we ever see them go down? And I thought, no.
Right.
You're never going to see them go down until there's a new CBA.
Yeah, and a new cap.
Right. The cap has gone up 8%. Right? So if you're going to get a raise, if you're a new quarterback that's contracts come up, whether you're Daniel Jones or Joe Burrow or whomever, then there's no harm in asking for these $45 million a year is what Patrick Mahomes makes.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question. I hear this all the time. I absolutely don't believe in it. Someone would say, oh, the Chiefs are getting a deal because the Giants are going to give Jones $45 million. No, they're not.
Yeah.
I mean, the Chiefs paid through the ass when his contract came up. So I mean, it does not matter how good that quarterback is. The only thing that matters is if there's 2 things in my opinion that really matter. Number 1, are they a competent NFL quarterback? And for much as people don't like Daniel Jones, he really cut down on his turnover margin. The Giants, out of quote unquote out of nowhere, make the playoffs or whatever. And now he has the ability to ask for this amount of money.
Yeah.
His contract is up. That's the first thing. We all know when that day is coming. There should be no surprise for any of these guys.
Yep.
Number 2, what else are you going to do? So these teams, these quarterbacks, when their contract's up, the players have them over a barrel because it's you can either risk me going away from your franchise and you get no compensation for my leaving, or you basically pay through the roof to retain me, and you absolutely know what kind of player I am by year 4, year 5 of me being in the NFL. So are they competent? And if yes, they're going to demand this contract. Number two, are you willing to walk away from those quarterbacks? And what we have seen dramatically is no, teams are not willing to move away from those quarterbacks because you just don't know when you're going to be in a position to get a quarterback who is as good as the guy that's currently holding you over a barrel.
Yeah. As Brad Gnomes
there he is.
said, it is a lot easier to get worse at quarterback than better.
So, I mean, I know that Brad Holmes actually said that quote.
Yeah.
And we're just, Brad Gnomes over there is like, summing it up for us. But that logic works at every position group for every team in every situation. It's a lot easier to get worse regardless about who the player that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know. And that's every draft. I mean, like a lot of draft picks, people talk about like, well, it's a guarantee that Jalen Carter is going to be like, Pro Bowl, All Pro, Hall of Fame level defensive tackle. Well, we don't know yet.
Yeah.
I mean,
he hasn't played a snap in the NFL.
We think that's likely, but like we don't know it. Like he might, unfortunately, I think the franchise tag is like 33 million this year. Joey says, I think they're going to franchise tag Jones, if anything. If they did, they'd buy themselves 1 year and $13 million. Not a bad idea.
So I think a lot of those franchise tag types of things, if they do end up tagging Jones, it may be a tag and trade. Tag him not many people are super happy when they get tagged, right? Because it means that they didn't get what they wanted. The team wanted to lowball them as far as they're concerned. And so they tagged him to get the lower number. And now they're like forced to play on this number that they're not a fan of, right? So I think a lot of times we may see the tag and trade thing where they're like, all right, I'll tag you. You got 32 million in this next year. I'm going to trade you to recover some assets, maybe draft a replacement, whatever, either before the season starts and then let you renegotiate with your new team, or after the season or at trade deadline or something along those lines.
I just noticed the episode title. That was funny.
Pick sixes aren't always bad.
That's right. So I think what you're going to see, at least in Baltimore, is that they're absolutely going to tag Jackson.
Yeah.
And then he is going to not play. And he is going to hold out. And that is either going to do one of two things. That's either going to give Baltimore the go-ahead to start actually taking legitimate calls on his availability, or they can hold his feet to the fire. Now, teams don't typically do that, but they could, So like what I imagine, everything has happened as not like I have foreseen. I was going to do a Star Wars quote right there, Emperor Palpatine. Yeah. But like, this has been everything. All the dominoes have fallen in the order everyone expected to with the Lamar Jackson situation to date. So, the idea was that he's representing himself. So because of that, Baltimore has to approve anybody that would reach out to him to like gauge his interest, work on a new deal after the trade, all that stuff. Baltimore has to approve that. There's no reason for Baltimore to approve that. They want to give themselves as much time to work with Lamar without interference, right?
Yeah.
As they can. So they're going to absolutely milk that for every second that it's worth. And then they'll put the franchise tag on them if they don't have a deal. So that looks like that's coming. Then they're going to lock in 32 or 33 million, all guaranteed. That's the problem with tagging guys, is it's all 100% guaranteed.
Yeah.
And then you have him until this time next year, right? When the tag runs out. So now what do you do? Like,
tag him again. You can do that twice.
Well, they did that with Kirk Cousins, right? And then Kirk was like, getting all this guaranteed money sure is great. I know whoever I go to next, I'm going to hold their feet over the fire. And now, like, his APY is probably a little bit lower than he otherwise could have gotten on the open market. But the guarantee that he got from Minnesota was that it's all guaranteed. He's effectively been franchised franchise tag
Yeah.
since his last 2 years in Washington.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot
Well, hey,
of money.
guaranteed to guaranteed. You can't take that away, right?
And the fact that like they're going to end up paying Justin Jefferson $30+ million a year, I think is going to be the death of Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. So,
yeah, or possibly just the death of the rest of the team, the ability to field a good team, the Aaron Rodgers effect, right?
Exactly, and like that's just it. Is like, so in this CBA, almost every other year, the Super Bowl team has been constructed on the back of a rookie QB contract. And then the other time, the other opponents have been, quote unquote, the greatest quarterbacks who have ever played in the NFL, vis-a-vis Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. So, I mean, like, when we look at stuff like through the lens of the Detroit Lions, and what we're saying here is like, what is more likely to be done if you're going to get to a Super Bowl, which is my goal, which is what I hope the goal is of the organization, is what is more likely to build in the modern NFL? Are you going to be able to go out and find a quarterback that is probably one of the greatest to ever play the game, right? Up on the level of Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, or can you build a team like Philadelphia built?
Right.
And the Philadelphia model would be the one that I would be trying to adopt if I'm the Lions, because there's a lot of similarities in those two teams.
Well, so I think that kind of rolls into our pick six discussion.
I did that on purpose, Mike.
I know, it was great, and it wasn't even planned. Well done. Oh my gosh, got Detroit Lions Forum.
I hope that this is a parody account, so because he doesn't deserve the 30 million we're paying him this year.
That's I'm assuming they're joking.
Oh, it has to be a joke.
Right, has to. So pick six. Drew, you and I had a conversation. I think it was after our last show, or maybe it was earlier. Was it Sunday? I don't know. Sunday. I was thinking it was like, we just got together and started chit-chatting about things. Yes, definitely a parody account. Goff is the third, possibly fourth best quarterback in the North.
He's just mad because I got on Twitter and made fun of him. So,
but we started talking about we were doing a mock together, and we were talking about pick six, and what I kind of thought about was, all right, well, I think at the time in our mock, CJ Stroud was available, and we were talking about, well, what do we do here? And I'm like, there's a few different things we can do with this. We can draft a quarterback. We can draft an edge. We can draft a D lineman. We can draft a cornerback. Those are really, because we kind of went through those positions of value: cornerback, wide receiver, edge, quarterback,
not
tackle, and interior defensive line. Right?
Yeah, because of Carter.
And like, which one of those do we actually need? We don't need a wide receiver right now, not at 6. Our edge rushers are pretty damn good. We probably don't need them. Interior defensive line we do, but like if Jalen Carter's off the board, is there somebody that's worth taking at 6? So we kind of talked about those, and I was like, I'm fine with taking a quarterback there because, yes, we have Jared Goff. Yes, he is a starting quality quarterback in the NFL. He is capable when everything else around him goes well. He is capable of being a decent quarterback. I'm not discounting any of that. But let's take a look at what the last 2 Super Bowl participants did, right? They each had a Pro Bowl quarterback on staff when they drafted their replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Seemed to work out. They got good guys on rookie deals and everything else. So my thought was, all right, we're at 6. If there's a quarterback on the board, if everything goes well the next couple of years, when are we going to ever get a chance to draft a quarterback this high?
Yeah, the question that you posed to me in our chat was, like if it's not this year, when is it going to be? Or like, how do you do it?
Right.
Was your question. And my answer
Yeah.
was, well, you either need to wait for someone on a rookie deal to effectively wipe their Instagram account, right? Because that's how every kid in the NFL signals their displeasure and then they want a new contract, is they wipe their fans off the Instagram account or their team off the Instagram account. And then you make an offer to them, like you pick up the phone and you call Arizona when Kyler pouts about his contract, or you call the Ravens about Lamar Jackson or whatever. And like, that's a different situation because those guys are largely, let's call them, more proven NFL commodities than say a rookie who's never taken a snap, right? So
Yep.
it's a little bit more the St. I keep saying the St. Louis Rams, the Los Angeles Rams method. Fuck them picks, because you don't want the question mark, you want the proven commodity, right? And so even if you're missing out on a couple of years of the rookie deal, even if you have to go into a second contract with the guy, you know what you're getting. So that's been their model. It worked out for them. They won a Super Bowl. Or let's say Caleb Williams and Drake May come out in this class, the 2024 class for quarterbacks, and you're the Detroit Lions, and Goff is going into his last season with the team, and you're like, okay, now is the appropriate time to go ahead and make a transition. How do you go get a relatively sure thing like Caleb Williams or Drake May? Well, my response was, you call up whoever has the number 1 overall pick, and you offer them 3 1s and 3 2s to go up and get it, because then you're not going to get outbid.
Right. So you either pay through the nose later with draft capital.
Right.
So hopefully you've built a fantastic team because you're losing draft capital for the next 3 years.
Right.
Or you go maybe there's going to be an unhappy quarterback that's going to test the market, or that's going to want. And I would never build a team counting on that being part of my plan, right? Or you take one now, because this is as close to number 1 as we're going to get. So do we take a quarterback do we wait and say, all right, we'll just throw a bunch of draft capital a year from now, 2 years from now, and give up our next, those next 3 first-round picks and a couple 2s, and give up a ton of draft capital? Or do we go the more immediate route, which is kind of what Kansas City did with Alex Smith, and what Philadelphia did when they went and got Hurts, because they had Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz, when he was good, he was an MVP candidate that year, if I remember right. But like, I would propose we go for it now. I would rather go for it now, even if we have to let him sit a year behind Jared Goff. I'm perfectly fine with that, because we saved those 3 first rounds, 3 second rounds in 2 years from now, 3 years from now, to continue to build around that rookie quarterback. For me, the real question is, do we try to move up? Are we happy with who we think might be there at 6? If we think it's going to go Bryce Young, then Will Levis, and CJ Stroud's going to be there, are we happy with Stroud? Or are we happy with Levis if we think Stroud's going to go in front of him? Or do we really, really want Bryce Young? Because I would rather, I think, give up the 6 in probably like 18, whatever it takes to move up to 1 now to get Bryce Young, than to give up 6 quality draft assets 2-3 years from now. So that's where we kind of got into that conversation.
There's no way on earth that Chicago's taking 6 and 18 for 1. So it's just not enough. They would be, so of all the top 5 trades during the CBA, I don't think any team has moved off of 1, let alone in the top 5, for that little draft compensation. So to be honest, another conversation that you and I have had in the last week or so is, if Jalen Carter's there at 3, what do you do? Would you trade up with Arizona? So I crunched some numbers, and if Arizona is going to take like the average draft capital for a trade in the top, basically at any point in the NFL draft, it's the minimum ask is 6 and 18. So if the draft went something like, team at number 1 takes Bryce Young, Houston Texans at number 2 take the next quarterback, and you're sitting there in your Arizona, I don't think they're going to move off of 3. And the reason why is their new head coach, whatever is for Jonathan Gannon, I think his name is, was the defensive coordinator in Philly. What did Philly's defense look like? They had a they have invested high draft capital into defensive linemen for years. They went out and made a signing for Hassan Reddick and gave him, quote unquote, more money than any other team was offering to bring him on board. And then before the trade deadline was over, I believe they went out and signed Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh and traded for the Bears for Robert Quinn. And they got themselves a backup defensive line for their playoff push. Like, this is a team that blitzes about the least amount in the NFL and is committed to getting pressure with 4. Now, if Jonathan Gannon holds true to form in Arizona the way that he did in Philadelphia, he will need defensive linemen because Arizona's D-line is nowhere close to what Philly's was. And if you're telling me that he can start off his tenure in Arizona similar to the way that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes started off in Detroit by hitting a home run, Lions took Sewell, right? Not a sexy but pretty safe pick. They take Jalen Carter. Well, it's in line with their philosophy. It's a value at where they're taking him because he could be the quote-unquote best player in the draft. So, and then they're going to start that we're going to get pressure with 4 philosophy in Arizona. So I don't think you're moving off of 3. So then you get to number 4, and this could be either the team. This could either be Chicago or, the Indianapolis Colts, depending on if they trade out. So are you going to trade up 2 spots for the 3rd quarterback on the board? So basically the question is, like, where are you trading up if it's going to be in the top 5 or top 4 picks? So the minimum that those teams are going to accept are your 2 first-round picks. You are not going to keep them. If you do, it's a theft. If you keep 18 and you're able to trade up and not include another first-round pick in the deal, it's straight up theft, and you should do it.
Right.
So
what about our 6 and next year's first to move up?
No, now you're paying them equal capital. So like the trade would need to look like 6 plus a non-first round pick this year or next year, and you have. If I'm the GM of the Lions, now I'm interested because I'm not going to be taken for a ride in order to move up to take a quarterback that's going to sit for a year. Now, this has happened before. Kind of most high profile was when the Chiefs traded up to take Patrick Mahomes and sat him for a year. But the guys in this class didn't even have the draft kind of projections that Patrick Mahomes had when he came out. So
yeah,
to me, I think that what you should do is you should sit at 6. Now, once again, I have an aversion to trading up at all. So like, I think that they should sit at 6 and see what happens. And like the way that I have seen a lot of drafts, like mocks go, and it's like, we're not through the combine yet. We haven't done free agency yet. So take it for what it's worth. But I think it's going to go something like QB, Anderson, Carter. And then I think that Seattle's the wild card, but I don't think they're taking a quarterback. I think they're going to re-sign Geno Smith. So I think that the 3rd quarterback off the board, unless Seattle trades out of the pick, is going to be there for the Lions. And then you have to ask yourself, are they comfortable depending on who that guy is? And then if you are, and I think it's probably more likely to be, Levis or Stroud, would you take a guy there? And I think that you're right in posing the question, like, when's the next time that we're going to be here?
Yeah. And that was my entire philosophy on taking a quarterback at 6, not necessarily because I want to get rid of Goff this season, but because this is going to be the time that we can get a potential franchise. I mean, when you're drafting a quarterback, you almost never get a for sure thing. Jamarcus Russell was taken ahead of Calvin Johnson, for example, right? You get some duds in there. So you're never going to be like for sure. But knowing that this is going to be the cheapest we'll ever at 6, if we don't trade up, the cheapest we'll ever have an opportunity to get a potential franchise quarterback.
Yes.
If we wait until later, it's going to cost us a shit ton of draft capital, and it's going to be very expensive.
So the only way,
because of that, right? Just that's why I'm like, I would go for it, because even if man, Jared Goff really lights it up. He's really turned his career around, and he is no longer a 17th or 19th graded quarterback. He is legit top 10, and he needed a new place to go, right? Say that's the thing. We have this guy that we drafted at 6 that is still super valuable to us. We can then trade him out as well if we wanted to. So it's not like we're wasting draft capital by taking a quarterback, even if we decide, you know what, we just don't need you, and then we can recoup that value down the road.
Yes. So one thing that we have what the draft has also shown us, and it's ever expanding enlightenment of the casual NFL fan, is that if even when you screw up at the quarterback position, you can trade those guys for something that's worthwhile in the class. Like Josh Rosen was taken 10th overall. He was traded for a second-round pick. Sam Darnold was taken top 5. He recouped 3 draft picks, including a second-rounder when he was traded to Carolina. Like in the very recent past, we have examples where you're not going to get back anything close to what you paid for him, but it's not like you're getting back 6th and 7th round picks. So you're going to be able to get something, quote unquote, of worth. That's why teams who are having these quarterback issues with rookie guys, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Jordan Love, that's why they should explore trading these guys if they're not convinced. Like especially if, there's even Justin Fields trade chatter, and he was great this last season.
That's absurd.
It is absurd, and I don't agree with it.
I'll take him. I'll trade you 6 for him.
I would yes. If I was the Detroit Lions and I called the Bears up and said, stay at 1, I'll trade you 6 for Justin Fields. Would that be cool? Well, they took him at 11.
So here's the crazy thing. If you're the Bears and you're not sold on Justin Fields, don't you just do that? You draft Bryce Young at 6, trade Fields to us for draft Bryce Young at number 1 overall, trade Fields to us for 6, possibly 6 and a third or something like that, and then draft Will Levis or whoever is there at 6 and just really retool.
Pretty much.
You got to consider it.
Zakwa says, great as a runner, horrible as a passer. He's not a horrible passer. He's not.
Stroud?
He's not. No, I'm assuming that he means Justin Fields, but Justin Fields is not a horrible passer. I just think that what is happening to him has happened to other OSU quarterbacks coming in, is that their offensive scheme in college is to get great wide receivers, open in space, running the ball in huge areas, right? Like it is not difficult to throw a wide receiver open at Ohio State. But when you come to the NFL and all those windows are shorter and they're not wide open and you have to place the ball, that takes a lot of coaching and effort and development time. It's exactly the same thing that happened to Josh Allen. Josh Allen was utter trash for the first 2 years that he was in the NFL, and then he goes from utter trash to elite top 5 quarterback for a couple of reasons. Number 1, he worked on his footwork. Justin Fields can do that. It's basically coaching, right? And you just have to get used to it. Number 2, he'd been in the NFL for 2 years. He'd been in the same scheme for 2 years. He knew what was expected of him, and they went out and they got Stephon Diggs, and they're giving him weapons. He's in the system. He's been working on his mechanics for 2 years, and you see an enormous jump. I don't see any reason why the same thing couldn't happen for Justin Fields. So,
especially the weapons. Who is he throwing to right now?
See, that's the other thing. If you took Justin Fields and you could not find a worse team to put a rookie quarterback on when they traded up for him. So they have little talent on the offensive line. They have almost no skill position players. So I'm not comparing Fields to Josh Allen. I'm comparing their situations to one another. So like their situations are remarkably similar. They were both teams traded up in the draft to get them. Allen at 7, Fields at 11. They went to now Buffalo was a better constructed team than Chicago was, but even Buffalo went out and reworked like what they were doing in order to surround Josh Allen with talent. And so like that's the difference in my opinion is that the Bears haven't done that. The Bears had their first opportunity.
Best wide receivers would be maybe third string or the number 3 on Buffalo.
Darnell Mooney is nowhere. I mean, it's a good wide receiver, but like he is not enough in a wide receiver core to compensate for what a defense is doing schematically to the Bears to the Bears offense. But like instead of going out and getting offensive linemen and skill position players this last draft, they drafted Jaquan Brisker, Kyler Gordon, and then they waited until the 7th round pick to take 3 offensive linemen and had to start one of them because they cut Borum, I think, who ended up going to Washington and became their starting left tackle.
Who has better weapons, Jones or Fields?
Jones? Mac Jones?
Sure. I was thinking.
Well, I mean, I think that if it's Mac, if he means Mac Jones, then like I would say that Fields has Darnell Mooney, Jones has Jacoby Meyer, Daniel Jones.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
Daniel Jones.
So Daniel Jones had a rookie tight end in Cody Bellinger who contributed. Darius, I can barely name New York Giants offensive skill position players. I mean, they're terrible, right? But like that's the difference.
He's got Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, right? Saquon. I mean, like
Hodgins, Darius Slayton, Richie James are their top 3 wide receivers.
Yeah. Both of those teams' offensive skill position players are bad. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. But like, I mean, the similarity that like all 3 of these quarterbacks have is that they're huge and they run. And like to be honest, I mean, like the Bears put up 30 points on the Lions just by running the ball. So I mean, like we won by a single point in the first meeting. Yeah, and that's different. But like, no one can sit here and tell me that like the Detroit Lions, when they're playing the Chicago Bears, aren't fucking terrified of what Justin Fields can do on a football field, because he's a matchup nightmare and he's a threat. And like the worst thing for the Lions would be if he stays in the division and fixes some of these issues and Chicago does properly support him.
Yeah. If he turns into, doesn't even have to be exactly Josh Allen, but like,
no,
nearing Josh Allen, right? If you start moving into that direction, we're just going to be screwed.
Right. Like all he has to do to be an absolute thorn in the Lions' side for the next 5 years is to just continually improve where he's weak, and like this is the same argument that we had when Jared Goff came into the building, which was, hey, Jared Goff, maybe not the greatest starter, no matter what David Pike says. Where'd David go? He ended up jumping out of chat, I guess. He just wanted to say hi. But like the idea and the excuse that David has made for Jared Goff this entire time was that he didn't, quote unquote, have the team around him. Well, first it was this skill position group, right? So they didn't have any wide receivers. They didn't have running backs. There was a lack of talent. So they go out. What do? They get Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then all Amon-Ra St. Brown has done in the 2 seasons that he's been with Detroit is catch almost 200 passes. I mean, Jared Goff goes more to Amon-Ra St. Brown than almost the rest of the wide receiver core combined. So, like, then they sign DJ Chark. Then they draft Jamison Williams. And I know he didn't play 3/4 of the season, so take that with a grain of salt. They trade TJ Hawkinson. They did sign Jamal Williams to pair up with DeAndre Swift. 2-headed back in the backfield. Now you're running play action. Jared Goff looks better, right? Okay, so then the first 7 games of the season, they're 1-6. Jared Goff's having this unbelievable statistical season, right? Completely out of nowhere. And then it's like, well, the Lions still aren't winning. It's still not Jared Goff's fault. The defense is letting him down, right? So basically, if you completely support a mid QB like Jared Goff with a functioning team around him, his play improves. No shit.
Yeah.
This is the most logical, straightforward, linear kind of thing that you could possibly imagine. So, okay, so the Lions are doing that. They're building their team, they're making a foundation, and they're supporting Jared Goff. Okay, if Chicago does anything like that, that's trouble for Detroit. Yeah. Because Justin Fields can do things that Jared Goff simply cannot do, which is throw the ball further down the field and run the ball like the goddamn wind. So, like,
yep,
he is an absolute nightmare to try and match up against. So, if they trade him, it should either be to us or out of the conference, because I don't want to play him.
Right. So, kind of back to our pick 6. Other than potentially a quarterback, who else would you trade up to get?
No one.
You wouldn't trade up for Carter.
If Caleb Williams was in this draft, I would trade up for Caleb Williams. I would make a god offer for Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, to me, has the best chance to be the next guy. Well, keep on that, David. You're amazing. So Caleb Williams has a chance to be a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. He is, if God had to design a quarterback for the modern NFL, it's Caleb Williams is in that mold. So I would move heaven and earth to get Caleb Williams. I would not move up for any other player in this draft class. I would sit at 6. I would let the draft unfold. I would see who is there at 6. And then I would take the player that they hope, works the best for the Detroit Lions, or trade back. The team is not done. The team is not done being built. Like this was my concern when they were winning games, is that David, if you're going to remain in chat, please make sense or leave. So, the thing about trading back would be that, like, you can just continue to support building the team, right? The defense was 31st in the NFL. That's not good enough. Having the 18th pick is not going to take your defense from 31st to 18th or whatever. Like, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. I don't think people are giving credit to how much work still needs to be done to fix the defense and have it be a functioning unit. Good point, Mike. And so I think that the best thing for the Lions to do would be something to go like cornerback at 6 and then see who's there at 18. Maybe a defensive lineman, another cornerback perhaps. We'll see who's there. But I would avoid positions of low value, right? And like even if you're talking about what to do at 6, investing in a quarterback, even if it is like a CJ Stroud or a Will Levis or whomever, even the case could even be made for Anthony Richardson. It's a weaker case, but you could make the case that you are investing in the potential of someone who can change the fortunes of this team for the next half decade, more so than any other position that you could draft in the draft on a given year. So,
and that's where I'm at on the quarterback thing. If not now, when? And this is the cheapest we'll ever get it, at least for the foreseeable future. Mm-hmm. Unless all things go to hell, this should be the cheapest we'll ever get a quarterback. So that's where I would personally go. How you make that how do you have that conversation as a GM and coach with a guy like Goff saying, yeah, we couldn't pass up on Stroud, but what does that mean for me, coach? That means you better kick ass and make us not start this guy and want to trade him later. That's got to be a rough conversation to have. That's what I would do. And if not him, and I would understand if they don't want to do that, right? Is that our number one position of need? Not necessarily. But when you look at best player available and availability and cost benefit, like that total cost of ownership for the next 5 years, quarterback's a pretty reasonable thing to consider.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I'd probably go corner.
Well, that's where I think they should go. Cornerback is by far the biggest need on the team, and they only have Jerry Jacobs, Chase Lucas, and Jeff Okudah under contract next year. So regardless of who they bring back, they're going to have to draft one or two corners just to fill the position group out. So if it's Christian Gonzalez or if it's Devon Witherspoon, one of those two guys is likely to be there at 6. And like, even if like, let's say that CJ Stroud and Christian Gonzalez are there, I'm gonna want them to take Christian Gonzalez because like you are addressing the biggest need at a position, a premium position with a premium draft capital. That's the recipe for building a team in the correct manner. So
I would be fine with that. I'd still rather take the value at the quarterback position. We can always address corner at 18 if we need to. But we would be saving $25 million a year plus more once if we were to extend Goff and re-sign him. I would rather have those dollars later than having to pay Goff deserves $50 million for Goff down the road, right?
So David and I used to be in the same Facebook group, and a number of, and I say used to because he blocked me in the group because every time he posted a ridiculous comment like the one that he just did in our chat, I would bring up like logical, points, common sense points, and he got tired of it, so he blocked me. Yeah. So, but like today, somebody else made the same kind of point, which is like, why would you take a quarterback at 6 when you're paying Jared Goff $30 million? Like that, like his point was like, that's the investment that you've made, right? Like Jared Goff had a very good year for Jared Goff at this last season. Like, why wouldn't you expect Jared Goff to do that again next year, right? At relatively the same price. And so I said, like, even if CJ Stroud, whose comp in the draft is to Jared Goff, like, even if that's who you took at 6, you're saving $20 million, $25 million every year. Because you can use those funds to go out and like sign a couple $10 million a year players. Like that's going to help your line. Like if it's a Vitae replacement, if it's another linebacker, if it's another, defensive back or whatever, those are things that you can continue to do when you have a quarterback on a rookie contract. So even if you, like Brad Noam said, get worse at the position because you're taking a rookie who's never played in the NFL before, the fact that you have that new contract on your roster is beneficial because then you're going to be like, well, it's this rookie quarterback plus this guy plus this other guy. Is all or those 3 players together worth what Jared Goff brought to the team?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I would not be upset if they went Devon Witherspoon. If they went corner there, I wouldn't even be upset if they had if they took Miles Murphy or Brisset or one of those guys over a quarterback. But I also would actually be a little pumped if they did go quarterback. I'm good either way.
Yeah.
If we were to drop back from 6,
I
wouldn't want to drop back too far. But if there is a guy like Stroud available and that's just not the way that Holmes wants to go, I'd be fine moving back to 8, 9, maybe 10. Like I wouldn't want to go too much further than that. But I'd be willing to drop back to there. There's not that big of a drop off of talent. The types of people that we want are going to be there still. I'd be fine with that.
So the Dallas Cowboys own the 27th pick in the draft. And here's the idea that I had today at lunch. After I called you and you didn't pick up because you were working at your job and I was very upset. I'm
going to be working after the podcast too. So
the rumor on ESPN, which is most likely crap. So like, let's not get all Twitter pated about it.
A grain of salt. There
Correct. The rumor was that the Dallas Cowboys are enamored with CJ Stroud, right? Like maybe they are looking to trade Dak Prescott. maybe they are looking to get off his $40+ million contract because it's $40 million a year. It's a huge chunk of your cap. So let's say Dallas is legit about wanting to move up in the draft for CJ Stroud. The draft takes place. Detroit is at 6. Dallas calls you. These are the kinds of move ups that you can usually hold teams over a barrel. So here's
that's a big drop back too.
It's 21 spots, but like the things, like the trades that I would point to would be something like the Julio Jones trade, like where I think it was fewer picks that Atlanta had to move up, but I think they moved up from like 18 to 7, or it was like 22 to 7 to take Julio Jones. So like I'll go back and I'll see if I can find a trade that like approximates that, but like I would not be surprised if you can get 2 1s out of Dallas to move from 27 to 6, especially if they're going to take a quarterback.
Oh, we better. That would be a starting point.
So like here's the thing then. So this would be.
Wait, are you saying we have to take Dak as well?
No.
Okay, I was like, we can't afford that.
No.
And he's not even an upgrade.
I am not taking Dak Prescott. So, like that's a worse situation than the Lions are in with Jared Goff. So like. Here would be my move if I was the GM of the Detroit Lions in this situation. I have Goff on contract for 1 more year. I'm at 6. CJ Stroud's on the board. Dallas calls me up. Dallas says we want to move up to take Stroud. So like I said, okay, well, what do you want to offer me? We'll offer you 27, our 2nd round pick this year, our 1st round pick next year, and some sprinkled in draft capital throughout the late rounds. I take that. Here's why. I go down to 18. I take whatever cornerback's there. Joey Porter, Deontay Banks, who knows who's there. I'm going to take one of those guys. At 27, BPA, maybe Osiris Torrance, even though I don't want to use a 1st round pick on a guard. We'll see who's there, right? Maybe a team wants to move back up into the 1st for whatever. Now I have a little extra capital. Next year, Caleb Williams declares for the draft. I have another 1st round pick in my pocket. I go to whoever's at 1, and I can offer one more 1st round pick than almost all the other teams in the NFL. Because like you can only trade 1st round picks 3 years out, but you can trade however many picks in those 3 years.
Yeah.
So like I could offer 2024's my pick and Dallas's pick. And they're going to be playing a rookie contract QB.
Right.
So more than likely if they're moving up to 6. And then I can offer 25 and 26's first. And now I can bid to go up and get potentially the best prospect since Trevor Lawrence or maybe Andrew Luck. So.
That's interesting. And that's part of team building, right? Is you have to play the long game. It's not just about this year. It's about every year after that and setting yourselves up for a long-term success. Mm-hmm. So, like, I would be fine with that. The interesting thing would be, all right, so we do that, and we're not able to trade up to number 1. Are we like, well, shit? We still have a lot of draft capital, right? So we can still get really good pieces to surround Goff and the rest of the team and all that kind of stuff. So it's still never a bad thing.
Right. So if you're going to jump out of a plane, right? Like by making like a huge trade like that.
Yeah.
Like it's not bad to have a backup parachute in case the first one doesn't work. Right. So like let's say that they make that trade, like they pick up 27, a 2nd rounder. So you had 3 2s. And then you pick up a 1 next year, right? And they move up 21 spots. The golden parachute in that situation is you're picking twice in the 1st round next year again. Yeah. So, like, who knows what Dallas's record is? It would be unlikely just because of math that they would be picking 27 or higher. So, like, their draft pick should improve. Who knows how far? Yep. But you might be looking at 2 picks in the middle of the 1st round. Like if you make the playoffs and Dallas just misses, like you switch positions or whatever. So that's not a bad thing either. Quarterback is not the most pressing need on this team. But in absence of that, you continue to do what you've done with Goff, which is just to continue to build around. And then who knows? Like this might be 2025. Goff has left the team or is on like a 1 or 2 year deal. And then like you're sitting there at like 18, 21, 24 or whatever, and you take the fourth quarterback off the board at that pick. Like there have been pretty good quarterbacks that have gone in the middle or late rounds. Not as many as the top of the first round, but it's possible.
Yeah.
And like
we can even take a late round quarterback this year, even with the longer term plan for, if Dallas does kind of come up with a God offer or whatever like that, then it doesn't stop us from grabbing a late round draft pick, hoping they could. I mean, Dak Prescott, I think, was a third rounder. Tom Brady, obviously the most famous sixth rounder. Right. You can find diamonds in the rough.
Yeah, you got to be willing to draft
diamonds
those guys,
in the rough, right? You don't find them very often, but like, I mean, if you're gonna hit on a sixth round, you might as well have it be a quarterback.
Yeah, people forget that even the Patriots didn't draft Tom Brady 5 times. I mean, like
they passed on him 5 times.
Right. I mean, like it's like, oh, you took Tom Brady in the 6th. You're geniuses. Well, you were stupid 5 times, right? So I mean, like if everyone knew who these guys were going to end up being, the drafts would look way different.
Yep.
So did you want to keep this to around an hour, Mike?
I can go as long as you guys want to do. We got a lot of good chat in the board, and I want to actually ask a question. I know we're talking pick 6 here, but I saw an interesting comment in one of the Facebook groups, or I don't know, some article talking about Jalen Ramsey. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he is trying to recruit him a little bit, making some comments for Jalen, saying, "Hey, bro, if you get cut, come over to us." And I remember seeing someone say something to the effect of, "Hey, if he gets cut, go ahead and sign him, but I don't want to trade our number 18 for them." And I remember thinking, Drew, would you trade the number 18 pick, or would you draft a player with the number 18 overall that is going to immediately be one of the top 3 cornerbacks in the league, probably for the next 3 to 5 years, over the life of the rookie contract? He's going to immediately be a top 3 cornerback and probably remain in the top 5, top 8 for the entirety of his rookie contract. Would you do that?
Yeah.
That's what trading for Jalen Ramsey gets you, other than you don't get him on a rookie contract.
Correct.
That's the only difference.
So
like, why wouldn't you do that? If you've got the cap room, I would trade 18 for Ramsey in a second.
Yeah, 100%. And so like, there's a lot of people out there that are like, the Rams aren't going to accept just pick 18 for Jalen Ramsey, and maybe not. But then you don't have to trade for Jalen Ramsey.
Right, yeah.
I mean, you offer 18, and if they say no, they say no. Cool. If they say yes, awesome. Right. I mean, remember,
I'd even give up maybe like a 4th or a 5th in addition to that.
Yeah, that's what I was.
The odds that you're going to hit on a 4th or a 5th are relatively low anyway. So take the 18, take the shot in the dark on the 5th rounder or whatever, and I would take him in a heartbeat. I probably wouldn't go any more than a 1st and a 4th, though. 1st and a 3rd gets to the part where I'm questioning it a little bit more.
Yeah. So I also posted something in our Discord today about, Brad Spielberger, who used to work for overthecap.com, who was a site that I use all the time. And now he works for PFF as their draft cap, their salary cap guru.
Okay.
He posted an article, 5 trades that he wanted to see in the offseason. One trade that he wanted to see was Cincinnati trading T. Higgins to the Lions for 18 and a 4th. I do that too. I would absolutely do that. Yes. So I don't know that T. Higgins, and this might sound crazy to people, but I don't know that T. Higgins is appreciably worse than A.J. Brown. I think the fact that he has Jamar Chase on his team hides the fact that he's as good as he is. But like when Jamar Chase got hurt, I don't know that they really missed a beat on offense. Like they just fed T. Higgins more. I would absolutely trade a 18 and a 4th.
I'm not sure. I don't have the faith in Higgins yet that he's worth that. But
I think that if you went back and watched a couple of Bengals games, especially the ones where Jamar Chase isn't on the team, so you could see Higgins be featured a little bit more, I think that would probably change your mind. But this is the exact kind of skill set the Lions receiving corps does not have right now. A lot of size, a lot of contested catchability. Young, you're going to have to pay him. So, like, I would assume that, like, if you're making that trade, you're basically signing up for what the Eagles did with
Brown.
AJ Brown, which is that you're going to sign him, you're going to trade for him, and then you're going to sign him to a long-term contract. So, like, Mark in the chat's like, no T. Higgins, please, until game one when he catches like a game-winning touchdown pass, and then it's like, oh, okay, cool, this was awesome. Because you have fully healthy Jameson Williams, you have contested catch T. Higgins, and you have Amon-Ra St. Brown just absolutely chewing people up underneath. Like, that is the quintessential wide receiver core to be feared in the NFL.
Yeah, I guess originally I was thinking that Chark would still be on the team, and obviously we let that void away into the abyss.
Yeah.
So I'm like, do we really need another wide receiver that we would want to throw a 18th overall pick at?
Yes.
I guess it makes sense now. I'm not sure I'd draft a wide receiver there. Maybe I would. It depends on if someone's – I don't know. If they're that good, they're probably going to go top 10.
If T. Higgins was in this draft class, he'd be the number one wide receiver in this draft class.
Yeah.
But that's only because you know, like, what he's been for 2 years, right? So
yeah.
But like,
yeah, I mean, I definitely consider that.
Yeah. So I mean, like, this is the other thing that you can do with draft picks. Like, you can trade them for established players, and so like, it's an avenue that the Lions should absolutely explore, and I would imagine that they would, because Brad Holmes used to work for Los Angeles, so he saw Les Snead do that shit all the time. But like, Chark's contract voided. Like, he's an unrestricted free agent. So the best case scenario here is that see you, Don. The best thing that you can do here is to not effectively sign a bunch of free agents, re-sign your own guys, let DJ Chark waltz off into the horizon, and Kenny Galladay him for a comp pick at some point down the road. And then if you add, like, through a trade or a draft pick, somebody like that. No, don't go to other people's podcasts, you guys. Come on. Stop it. So, and you add that way, like, okay, so if you get a 4th round pick back, then you're just trading 18 for Higgins, right? I mean, so it's like,
yeah,
you traded DJ Chark and a 4th round pick for T. Higgins. Like, that's not a bad.
Yeah. Well, so do you want to do? I've got some time. We got guys chatting. Do you want to do a mock draft? We can kind of
let's just do
through that number 6 pick, right?
Let's just do a 1st round mock draft, okay?
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, you run it this time, okay?
Oh, me? All right.
Well, I like to keep you involved. I don't want to do all the running and all the talking. Don't get me wrong. I love talking. That's one of the reasons I wanted to do a podcast. So
right, and you're quite good at it.
Oh, I appreciate that. But we're friends.
The talking
guys
people.
Take that with a grain of salt.
Your voice sounds great.
Oh, Michael.
Content.
Okay.
Kidding. All right, let's. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna do PFF?
Yeah, because Pro Football Network hasn't upgraded. I mean, they still have like Quentin Johnson being taken number 1 overall by the Bears when I do mocks on their site, and I'm just like, okay. Like, I know we haven't gone to the combine yet. I know free agency hasn't happened yet, but like, I can't mock Quentin Johnson number 1 to the Bears. I mean, that's just ludicrous on the face of it.
All right,
it's been 20 years since a wide receiver went number 1. And it's Keyshawn Johnson, which I just don't understand.
Wow. Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that one. All right, let me share my screen. Hello, Bueller.
Yeah, go ahead and share it, Mike.
Yeah.
So there's no perfect mock draft simulator. So I mean, that's a good point. We're just trying to get as close to feasible as we can, right? And so right now, all I'm saying is that's not Pro Football Network.
All right. So
make it a little bigger.
You just hold your horses there, fella.
Well, just take. Right, I like to give directions.
This is true. We want to care for positional value. Right? I always bump that up. They always have it really low, and that's how you get those stupid Brise at number 1 kind of nonsense.
Okay, yeah. So that'll help balance out some of what Funky was saying in the chat here.
All right, let's enter the draft.
So you picked a 7th rounder. That's fine. Can you make it a little bigger, please?
Did I?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. Round 1.
The speed indicator is under 7. Okay, never mind. My mistake.
Here, I'll bump that back a little bit.
Look, I was wrong. I admitted it. So I'm waiting for the draft network. I think PFF has branched like 9 or 10, Funky. Okay, so this is the absolute worst case scenario, right?
Yep, we lost Carter and Anderson. Weatherspoon's already gone as well.
Do three rounds, Funky. Mike, that's nothing.
What's that?
We have a request in the chat to do a 3-round mock. Can we start over?
All right. I will allow it. Funky, your wish is my command.
He speaks, we jump, right? How high, right? That's what we want.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, so Joey's got a good point. Like this is a
little bit different.
It is a little bit different. Their big board, PFF's big board, has recently been updated, and it has some very odd things that I don't understand either. Like Trenton Simpson is widely regarded the number 1 off-ball linebacker in this class, and they have him ranked 59th for some reason. Like, that's not realistic to me. Like, he uses the example of Manuel Forbes being ranked 81. Like, I also don't feel that that's realistic. I do think Brian Branch around 10 is realistic, though. The guy is a shiny, bright penny. So, okay. So here we've gone Jalen Carter, Bryce Young, Will Anderson, Will Levis, Quentin Johnson. Other than the Johnson pick, I don't know that I think that any of that's too crazy.
Right.
But this is pretty close, I think. So, like, insert other player where the Quentin Johnson pick is. We probably weren't taking him anyways. So here's the classic thing. So, Mike, why don't you do me a favor? Can you click on trade there in the middle just to see, like, 19? Okay, so that's further down than you're going to want to go.
I'd prefer not to, but I mean, you bring up a good point for down the road stuff.
At some point, we will do one of those crazy drop back trades, okay? But like, let's hang a little bit closer to the vest tonight.
All right. So if that's the closest we can get to 6, we're gonna stick at 6.
Okay. So my pick here, if I'm Brad Holmes or Brad Gnomes, would be Devin Witherspoon. I think that he exemplifies not only the attitude that you want on this team, but he is a premium position at a position of need at a reasonable point in this draft.
Yep. And he's improved every year with a huge improvement this past year.
Well, I don't think that he's been playing football all that long. So could you please click on analysis? Shades of Darius Slay. The other comp that I've heard for him is Jair Alexander. So people in Detroit love Darius Slay. So Darius Slay 2.0 would make a lot of sense. And if you could just copy and paste Jair Alexander into a Detroit Lions uniform, I would be up for that too. So I mean, like, right. Don't twist my arm. So yeah, I'm a big Devin Witherspoon guy. I might have Christian Gonzalez a little bit ahead of him, depending on how he works out at the combine. But I don't think that you can go wrong with either of those two guys.
Gonzalez has been a little bit more consistent the last couple of years.
He did transfer, so I think that helped put him in a position. And would you click? Yeah, okay. Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, I think, is a good comp because his size and length, right? So
yeah,
Cromartie was a bigger corner. but they're both. I think they both play press man, and I just think that it's what it's want. I think if you want the like overall athletic profile, you go with Gonzalez, and if you want the attitude and heart, that kind of thing on your team, which sounds like what the Lions are drafting for nowadays, I think you probably go with Witherspoon.
All right, so I'm kind of curious what Joey and Funky and those guys are thinking.
Boy, Don
Would you go
Bird,
Stroud?
he's missing out. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got Stroud, Witherspoon, Wilson, Branch, Gonzalez, and even Anthony Richardson. Those are kind of like although I think if you're going to take a quarterback here, Stroud is probably the guy.
Yes, I would rather have Stroud than Anthony Richardson, but there's an argument to make.
We want to go with
my absolute dream first round scenario is to take either of these two corners at 6 and to take Branch at 18. I know that's not realistic, but that's why it's a dream and not a reality.
Right. Hey, so, you know what? Living in Magic Fairy Christmas Land is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anybody want Stroud? So we got Mark saying Witherspoon. Joey says Witherspoon. Funky is cool with Witherspoon, Gonzalez, or Porter. It looks like it's a corner, Mike.
All right. It looks like Witherspoon is the consensus.
Yeah.
Bam.
Someday people are going to be like, remember back when we only had 4 people in chat and you could get your opinions in like right away?
All right, we're on the clock. Branch went at 11.
That's an interesting spot, but
I did notice that there hasn't been a linebacker taken.
That's because they're linebackers. So can you click on the trade button for me?
All right, so we got
27. That's 9 spots. Okay, just wanted to double check. So I see this a lot. It's either Brian Breesy or Miles Murphy seems to be ending up on this mock draft simulator at this point in the draft. So here are my thoughts. You reach for Osiris Torrance here. All right, we're going to take that into account. Double dip in the first at corner and then a linebacker in the second, and Skinner, JL Skinner, Boise State. And you can really mock a nice squad with these mocks. That's true. Mark votes for Breesy. Okay. So I'm going to Funky doesn't want Breesy. I'm going to throw another hat into the ring, not at this spot, but in the second. And that is, I think his name is Carl Brooks from Bowling Green. 6'4", 300, blew up the Senior Bowl. He's listed as an edge, but at that size and weight, you can play him at three technique. Carl Brooks, that's his name. I think this guy, even though he's listed as an edge and you can play him at edge, I think this is the guy that I would want next to Aleem McNeil. Active hands, super
good.
agile.
I wouldn't mind taking anybody that ends up grading in the 80s and 90s and go improving from the 80s to the 90s, right?
Sure. It's also in the MAC. So, I mean, like, let's grain of salt, right? So yeah. I don't say this to take him at 18. I say this because I think that you can use 48 on him potentially.
Yeah.
So let's go back up.
We got Porter Jr., we got Breesy, we got reaching for Osiris Torrance.
So I don't usually agree with Funky. We're usually a little bit off on what we would prefer. But I don't mind taking Joey Porter here.
Yeah.
So here's why. The Lions have until May 1st to pick up Jeff Okudah's 5th-year option. So you don't have to make a choice on it. You can see how the draft goes before picking up his 5th-year option, right? So that's nice. So if you go into the class and you're like, okay, we have Devin Witherspoon and Joey Porter as our 2 outside corners, both on rookie deals. He's just looking. Don't anyone freak out.
Yeah, I'm just looking.
that is a pair of cornerbacks that both play press man, who still bring different skill sets to the position on a team that desperately needs corners. And like, to be honest, if you get those two guys, I don't personally give a shit what happens to Jeff Okudah. I mean, you're a Bob Quinn pick. So I would float him in trades. And if not, then you have another opportunity. And like, I get that, like, he's probably not going to sign, like, if he hit the open market on free agency, he's probably not going to sign a top 5 cornerback contract. I get it. But like, I also would not be surprised if he got something like what Darius Williams from the Rams got from the Jaguars a couple years ago, which was like $11 million a year. It's roughly what he's being paid now. So I wouldn't mind trying to get another comp pick out of Jeff Okudah. Plus, and as what you and I have talked about before, Mike, you cannot pay every single player on this roster a second contract. You have to identify players that you're going to be comfortable letting go. So whether that's DJ Chark this year or Jeff Okudah next year or Jonah Jackson or whomever else it might be, you cannot keep everybody. So yeah, Joey Porter.
Let's double dip at Joey.
Double dip. I mean, some people think it's gross. I think it's great. If we're talking chips and salsa, don't do it. If we're talking cornerbacks in the first round, go ahead. Okay, no Carl Brooks. 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 Take Carl Brooks.
Is right
Take Carl Brooks. Take Carl Brooks. So,
all right.
Oh, we did it. We didn't even give the chance. The chat.
Oh, no. Hey, you know what?
Mistake. That's me. That's on me.
Hey, you know what? I'm just the clicker. You guys are the ones telling me what to do. First, Funky's like, "Hey, go 3 rounds." All right, I go 3 rounds. You're like, "Take Carl Brooks." All right, I take Carl Brooks.
That's twice we've done what Funky said in this mock. So write it down. Write it down. I wish I knew your guys' first name so I could be like, "Oh, Jimmy. Oh, Charles." But like, okay, Mike. Is this who's the trade option here? Trading down to 64.
64 with the Bears.
Okay. So I don't have a problem trading within the division.
No.
So, like, if the Bears want to give me their draft picks to make them worse, fine. I'll take more draft capital away from them to enrich my team. I don't look at it as a downfall. But like, let's
the real
take a look
question
at
is
some
like,
linebackers.
who do we take here? Is there somebody that we just really have our heart set on? If not, like, is there somebody that we think might fall to us at 64?
81.
It's only 9 picks away, right?
64.
If we were to trade with the Bears.
I see. Okay, so Joey says this is where I would take Jack Campbell. Now, I am assuming that the reason that Joey is saying this is just that Joey is anticipating that when the draft actually happens, guys like Trenton Simpson and Drew Sanders will not be available. That's my guess, Joey. Tell me if I'm wrong. And if that is the case, and that's true, I have no problem taking Jack Campbell here. I think that he would be a very nice pairing alongside Malcolm Rodriguez. I also don't have a problem using our second round pick on a linebacker. So first of all, if Trenton Simpson was on the board here in an actual draft, you would just draft Trenton Simpson. That's not a question. But he is one of those hybrid guys. Like, he could very easily end up playing slot corner, even though he's more of a linebacker. But like, he's in that same mold as like Kyle Hamilton or Isaiah Simmons, in the sense that he doesn't have a true position. His body type is different. The way that he was used in college is different. But ultimately, I think that he's probably going to end up playing closer to the position that those guys play in the NFL than, say, a traditional true off-ball linebacker. But let's go with, we've done what Funky wanted. We got to work Mark in at some point. Let's go ahead and take Jack Campbell here.
All right, let's do it. Although, Joey said yes on Jack. That was Joey that wanted Campbell.
Did I misspeak?
You did. You said Mark.
Okay, then yeah.
We don't care what Mark thinks yet.
We don't. Not yet. Mark gets 81. So like, let's go ahead and take Jack Campbell here. The assumption being that Trenton Simpson and Drew Sanders would be off the board in a normal draft. I also really like Jamie Robinson from FSU as a slot corner, just FYI.
All right, Mark, your number's coming up here, buddy.
Yeah, paid. Epping call. Oh, good. Funky's on board with Jack Campbell. So everyone, we have a consensus here.
And shocker, the Rams take a tackle.
That's not a shock. Their offensive line was absolute trash this last year.
It was so bad.
It was really bad.
All right.
Okay, so let's scroll down. Let's give Mark some other
First, let's review what we've done so far, right? So we took Devin Witherspoon, a cornerback at 6.
Yep.
We double dipped our salsa, getting Porter at 18. So we got 2 cornerbacks.
Ooh, so good.
Right.
We're taking the north.
Carl Brooks on the edge.
Nope, he's a defensive tackle.
Okay. The defensive tackle.
He's listed as an edge. We're going to play him at defensive tackle.
All right. And then we took Jack Campbell as a linebacker to replace Angeloni. And now we are on the clock. And Mark.
Let's scroll down and see if.
Red gnomes here today.
Yeah, let's see if we can get.
Unless he says running back, in which case, no.
So Mark asked, what do we have so far? We have Witherspoon at corner, Porter at corner. We have Brooks at defensive tackle, Michael. And we have Jack Campbell at linebacker. So we have gone 100% defense, and we have started in the secondary, and we're working our way to the ball there. So we've got somebody at every level. So this is kind of the first opportunity to do a lot of different things. So is there anybody at this point in the draft, Mark, that you're looking at saying like, oh, that would be just really fun to have that guy on the team, or a certain position that you would want the team to go? Let's do a little prolonged scroll, Mike. Let's give him some options. Let's just,
So we've got on the offensive side of the ball, we have 2 running halfbacks. I'm not a big fan of doing that.
Me either.
We've got a tackle, which I don't think we need. There's a wide receiver, Parker Washington from Penn State, Jaden Reed from Michigan State. Go Green.
Stop it.
Not a ton on the offensive side of the ball.
So Cody Mock, Mark, would be a guard that you could take here. Mike, will you go and click on? Yes, thank you. You anticipated me. So even Cody Mock is going to be listed as a tackle, but he is like 6'3", 310. He's just not big enough to play tackle in the NFL. Like 310 is also maybe not big enough to play guard. But no, we're not doubling up at linebacker, Joey. Stop it. Stop it, you guys. No double linebackers. Mark, don't listen to them. We were generous with the doubling up of the cornerback.
We were generous with a 2nd-round linebacker. What are you talking about? We just picked a 6th-round linebacker who's one of the top 15 in the league.
Skinner is available, I believe, Funky. So there are some good options here, Mark, if you want a guard. I would also include Cody Mock, who's listed at tackle. But everybody that on this list would be, per the board that we're looking at, our next pick would be an overdraft, right? Yeah. So I don't mind Jarrett Patterson. He's basically a center, but like that seems to be like the perfect Evan Brown replacement if and when Evan Brown leaves, which he almost assuredly will. So I'd be shocked if he was back on the roster, to be honest.
Yeah, so like for here, as much as like we need a guard. I just don't know if we.
Mike, you're breaking up something fierce, buddy.
Our next pick is 154. Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. How about that name, Juice Scruggs?
Can you hear me now?
That's a killer name. I can hear you now.
You're gonna be there.
Yeah, but you're getting kind of patchy. I don't know what's going on over there. And if you freak out and can't go, I can't run the podcast.
Weird.
So you gotta figure this out. So chat's throwing out a lot of good suggestions. JL Skinner at safety. Jartavius Martin. I don't know who that is. I thought I knew a lot of people in this draft class, but I don't know that guy. Okay, so he says just take BPA at a position of need. So, Mike, let's get off of the interior offensive lineman. Michael.
All right.
See what I have to work with,
best
guys.
Position available. Best player available at position of need. What do you think? What is our position of need?
Okay, so at this point, having drafted these guys, I wouldn't mind a safety. Let's look at Skinner real quick from Boise State. Is he still on the board? Can you look at safeties, please? There he is. Big dude, 6'4", 220. Could be a linebacker. Does he? Oh, can you click on? 6'4", 220. So he's probably a little smaller than that. I think that PFF hasn't. I think they're using like the information put on the collegiate website. Elliott is not back yet, Funky. So he is an unrestricted free agent, and I haven't heard anything about the Lions re-signing players at this point. Mike, would you click on analysis for me? Jaron Curse. So I don't know that that's anything to like throw confetti about.
Yeah.
Mark says take the safety. So I know that Tracy Walker is on, according to his Twitter feed, is on pace, according to him, to be back for OTAs. Whether that means he's going to play week 1, that's fine. But like, Elliott is up, Skinner's hurt, and like you're letting guys go that played snaps for you anyways. So like Juju, Hughes, they weren't great, right? So you can take a guy at this point in the draft, 3rd round, 81, that's fine. The Lions have traditionally, under Holmes at least, taken guys here. Melifonwu, Kirby Joseph, 3rd round seems to be where they want to take those kind of back 7 safety-esque players. And this might very well be Walker's last year on the team. We're going to pay him $11 million this season, and then his contract in the 3rd year of his extension drops to $3 million, and you can cut him pretty easily. So like, it would make sense for them to go and draft another safety in this class to pair with Joseph to see if they work out with a year of Tracy Walker still on the contract. And if he doesn't work out, keep Tracy around for the 3rd year of his extension.
Yeah. All right. So that's our mock. We got A's in the 1st round, B's in the 2nd round, a C in the 3rd round. They probably graded it to B because they thought the other guys, they're like, why didn't you take Trenton Simpson? And we're just to assume that in real life he won't be there, right? So
yeah, I think that Joey was spot on with that one. I don't think Trenton Johnson will be there at 48. But, if he is, draft him. That's fine. I just don't want to use a 1st round pick on a linebacker. An off-ball linebacker. Like, if it's an edge rusher, that's a different story. But, like, not a traditional off-ball linebacker. So I would be, let's say, through 3 rounds, and there's going to be a big wait, 70 picks between JL Skinner and the Lions' next pick. So I would be pretty happy with that walking out. Like I would look at that and I would say, okay, like without knowing what guys you've re-signed, what free agents, whatever, and all the other guys you're talking about, like I do think that assuming DJ Chark leaves in free agency, there's going to be a starting wide receiver spot that you will need to address. We didn't do that here. That's fine. Like I would have looked at a guy like Rashee Rice in the second round for a wide receiver, assuming Chark leaves. But I think that if you go into next season and you were 31st in defense and the offense is relatively intact, you're looking at a pretty good haul.
Yeah.
And like the thing that I like about it, and I know I harp on this all the time, but like you invested the right kind of capital at the right time in the draft for the right kind of player. That's the thing that gets me like Twitter pated about the draft, is like, this is what you can do with it. If you're, this could very easily have been like linebacker, guard, tight end, running back, and it's like, oh shit, we're back to Matt Millen talking about stuff. He does seem like
I think like this overall, this is a pretty solid group of guys.
I have a hard time. Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Let's say, like Funky says, flip that defensive pass game within 3 rounds, and we kind of do that. That's the worst part of our team, is that secondary and the defense. I would like to see a wide receiver in the next pick, just because we need to. Of course, it all depends on what we do in the offseason when it comes to free agency. If we replace Chark in free agency, then maybe we don't need that wide receiver. But if not, we probably need to fill that slot on in the wide receiver room.
So we're about ready to go because we're at 90 minutes, and that seems to be about this, a little bit past the sweet spot. But let me throw an idea out here. One of those 2 second-round picks, send that to Houston for Brandon Cooks. He can play on the outside. He's only making like $18 million a year. Now, that's more expensive than all of our other wide receivers, but all of our other wide receivers are on rookie deals.
Right.
I think that if you put a player like Brandon Cooks at the DJ Chark spot, they're different players. They're not one-for-one replacement or whatever. I think that everybody would be pleasantly surprised by what he would bring to the offense, especially in a season where Jameson Williams is going to come back healthy, ready to play after a full season to get ready, and coming into the season healthy. Joey says Jared Wayne, Pitt wide receiver, day 3. I'll check him out. Always happy to take a look at guys, especially if there's value to be found in those later rounds. So, but we have some good news for everybody. So, please, we're here every Tuesday, 7 Eastern. Mike always loves to say it, so Mike, go right ahead.
Say what, Drew?
Like, comment, and subscribe. Now, I know how much you like it, so go. I won't do it this time. Go ahead, you do it.
Oh, you just did. All right, fine. We'll double dip. Comment, and subscribe. Tell your friends. Email questions at to casualgmpodcast@gmail.com, or add us on Twitter at casualgmpodcast. And then obviously in any of the Facebook forums that we're all kind of parts and members of, feel free to comment on things, respond, ask us questions, whatever.
You're killing it, dude. You're so good at this.
I know.
Mark says, lol, 18 million for Cooks. Come on, man. Dude, that's the going rate for a starting caliber wide receiver in the NFL nowadays. I mean, that's average. That's normal.
The elite ones are in the $27 to $30 million range.
Right. So I'm not saying go out and try and find the best dude in the NFL. I'm just saying, like, go out and find a guy that's got something in the tank. But so we have an announcement for you guys. We are going to, like, in this kind of period, I know the combine is next week, and that's going to be something that we're going to talk about. But we're also going to start doing a Mythbusters style of conversation here on the show at this point in the season. We're going to hope to kind of dispel some of these methods of thought that a lot of people have about the NFL that may no longer be true. And so next week, we're going to start off with, if you're going to go into the draft and you're going to make a trade, what should you expect to receive in the trade? And I have a really poorly managed Excel spreadsheet to share with you guys about that. We're going to try and clean it up a little bit and make it look
I'll make it pretty, you guys.
Yeah. But but we're going to do something like that. And so we have a couple of ideas for our Mythbusters series. draft value, the myth of what a good first round running back, especially in this class where Bijan Robinson has been mocked to the Lions a bunch lately. And then some other things that we are kicking around yet, which we haven't come to a decision. But if you would have something that you would like to suggest, either leave it in the comments, email our account, or hit us up on Twitter, and we will try and work, and I will work to get your idea busted, right? Like we'll bust it up. And then as we get closer to the draft, we're going to be obviously doing more and more content about the draft. And then during the draft, Mike, we might as well start promoting this now. Yeah. We are going to do a live draft party, a live draft party for the first round. You can see Mike and I and our friend Brian and Mike's son Danny this year all bet on each pick. That's a little game that we play. And you can see me absolutely lose my shit when everything happens every pick, because that's how I roll. So it's going to be a lot of fun. When we'll hope that you guys join us for that at least. And just thank you very much for being a part of the community so far. And don't let David back in, whatever you do.
You know what? I've got teenagers. I can ignore nonsense like no other.
I can't. I hate it. I don't want him in the chat. So
all right, we'll talk to you guys later. Till next Tuesday, keep it casual.